toll in Gaza exceeds 11,000 people. South Korea, United States defense ministers meeting in Seoul. Assalamualaikum and Salam Malaysia Madani. I'm Otto Othman for World Today. Now, fighting raged in Gaza on Sunday as the Israeli-Hamas conflict enters the 6th week. The health ministry in the Hamas-run Palestinian territory has said that more than 11,000 people, who were mostly civilians, have been killed in the war. Around Gaza City's Al-Shifa hospital, where thousands of sick, wounded and displaced Palestinians are trapped. The compound has been repeatedly hit by gunfire and strikes in recent days, one of which health officials said destroyed the cardiac ward on Sunday. Israel's military has denied deliberately targeting the hospital. Deputy Health Minister in Gaza, Youssef Abu Raishi, said Al-Shifa has 650 patients, around 40 children in incubators, all threatened with death, and 15,000 displaced. Meanwhile, around 500 foreigners and dual nationals, as well as several wounded Palestinians, were evacuated from Gaza to Egypt on Sunday. Rafah is the only crossing out of Gaza not controlled by Israel and had been closed on Friday and Saturday. The United Nations flag is lowered to half-mast at the UN Bangkok office, which hosts 21 UN agencies, to commemorate its staff who have been killed and wounded in these strikes in Gaza. The UN Agency for Supporting Palestinians, UNRWA, announced on Friday that more than 100 of its employees had died in the Gaza Strip since the start of the war. The United Nations said several people have been killed and wounded in strikes on a UN facility in Gaza City, where hundreds of Palestinians have taken refuge to escape the war. A school run by the UNRWA was also affected by the shelling in Beit Lahia in North Gaza. Thousands of people displaced by the war had taken refuge in the school. The Palestinian Health Ministry has not given update casualty figures for 48 hours, saying it has been unable to establish contact with hospitals. It said dozens of bodies are scathed on the streets, while ambulances have been unable to reach the casualties due to intense fighting and bombings. The defense ministers of South Korea and the United States met on Monday for security talks, with discussions to set focus on jointly countering threats by North Korea, including through executing extended deterrence strategy. The strategy, which holds that the U.S. will use strategic military assets, including nuclear forces, to defend its allies, has taken on greater significance as North Korea pushes ahead with its ballistic missile and nuclear programs. According to the South Korean Defense Ministry, the two countries have agreed to start a planned and real-time data sharing scheme on North Korea missiles in December. South Korea's Defense Minister Shin Won-sik welcomed his counterpart Lloyd Austin for the annual Security Consultative Meeting (SCM), where they were also expected to review the blueprint for the future of the alliance. The Israel-Hamas war and Russia's invasion of Ukraine have cast a shadow over the meeting amid Pyongyang's growing military cooperation with Moscow and questions about North Korea's support for Hamas. 5 United States Special Operations troops were killed on Friday when their helicopter crashed into the Mediterranean Sea during a training mission, according to U.S. officials on Sunday. U.S. European Command said search and rescue operations were launched immediately following the crash, and an investigation into its cause is underway. According to 2 U.S. officials speaking on the condition of the anatomy, the troops aboard the helicopter were U.S. Army Special Operations personnel. The United States has deployed 2 aircraft carriers, namely the Ford and the Eisenhower, along with supporting ships and dozens of aircraft to the eastern Mediterranean amidst the currently ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas, to act as a deterrent to ensure the conflict does not expand to other countries in West Asia. President Joe Biden and U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin expressed condolences in a statement on Sunday. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his family lit candles, or diyas, for Diwali, the annual Hindu festival of lights, outside number 10 Downing Street on Sunday. The Prime Minister was joined by wife Akshata Murthy and daughters Krishna and Anushka to mark the biggest festival in Hinduism, Jainism and Sikhism, held on 12 November this year. Diwali celebrates the triumph of light over darkness, or good over evil. The lamps or candles are lit outside homes to protect against spiritual darkness and are rooted in the Hindu legend of Ramayana. They also stand for good luck. Earlier, King Charles and Sunak led Britain in remembering the country's war dead as the government is seeking to unify communities. King Charles III on Sunday led Britain in a 2-minute silence to honor its war dead in his first remembrance service since being crowned. Almost 10,000 veterans marched past the Cenotaph Memorial in central London, while thousands more members of the public gathered in tribute to British and Commonwealth servicemen and women who have died in battle. The King, along with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and opposition Labour leader Keir Starmer, laid wreaths on the cenotaph shortly after the nation fell silent. Marches included 100-year-old Second World War veterans and children of servicemen and women who have died in conflict. Remembrance Sunday is an annual commemoration held on the closest Sunday to Armistice Day, 11th November, the anniversary of the end of the First World War, to remember servicemen and women who have fallen in the line of duty since World War I. It comes after the march on Armistice Day saw hundreds of thousands of pro-Palestinian supporters march through London, calling for a ceasefire in Israel's war in Gaza. The march went ahead after the week of tensions, which saw the government call for it to be scrapped, and police said they made scores of arrests. At least 40 construction workers were trapped Sunday after the road tunnel they were building collapsed in northern India, with rescuers scrambling to reach them beneath piles of debris. The collapse occurred early Sunday morning in the Himalayan state of Uttarakhand when a group of workers were moving out and replacement workers were going in. According to state disaster response official Durgas Rathodi, about 200 meters of the tunnel have collapsed. Some 40 to 41 workers are trapped inside, and oxygen is being supplied through the debris. But more rubble is coming down as rescuers try to remove the obstruction. The 4.5-kilometer tunnel is being constructed between Silkyara and Dandalgaon to connect the two of the holiest Hindu shrines of Uttarkashi and Yamnotri. A local police officer told reporters that they were very optimistic the men would be rescued safely, but added it was difficult to say how long it will take. The tunnel is part of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's favorite Char Dham Road project, meant to improve connectivity for some of the most popular Hindu shrines in the country, as well as areas bordering China. Accidents on large infrastructure construction sites are common in India. In January, at least 200 people were killed in flash floods in ecologically fragile Uttarakhand in a disaster that experts partly blamed on excessive development. Icelandic authorities are preparing for a volcanic eruption in the southwest of the island in the coming days after a series of earthquakes and evidence of magma spreading rapidly underground. The Icelandic Meteorological Office said on Saturday that there was a considerable risk of an eruption on or just off the Reykjanes Peninsula because of the size of the underground magma intrusion and the rate at which it was moving. Iceland's Civil Protection Agency ordered overnight from Friday to Saturday a complete evacuation of Grindavik, a fishing town of around 3,000 people. Volunteers said that if the Fagradalsfjall volcano erupts on the Reykjanes Peninsula, it could be worse than the Vatnseyjar eruption 50 years ago, which destroyed the town. The Civil Protection Authority also announced that it was sending the Thor patrol boat to Grindavik for safety purposes. The Reykjanes region has seen several eruptions in unpopulated areas in recent years. The Meteorological Office said the latest is expected to begin on the seabed just southwest of Grindavik. Coming up next, young Mexican governor Samuel Garcia enters presidential race. The young governor Samuel Garcia, age 35, who prides himself on having brought Tesla to his Mexican state of Nuevo Leon, entered the country's presidential race on Sunday. Now, Garcia officially submitted his candidacy for the Center-Leftist Citizens Movement, or MC, ahead of general elections on June 2nd next year. The party governs 2 states out of 32 in Mexico, hosting the country's second and third largest cities, Guadalajara in Jalisco and Monterrey in Nuevo Leon, on the border with Texas. Garcia said to his supporters that if young people go to vote, he believes that he will obtain a definitive and convincing victory in the election. Garcia joins 2 other contenders to have announced their candidacy so far. Mexico City ex-mayor Claudia Sheinbaum, 61, representing the governing leftist Morena party, and Senator Josil Chelves, 60, who has the support of a bloc of opposition parties. Sheinbaum is the lead with 46% of voter intention, according to a poll last month by the El Financiero newspaper, followed by Galvez with 28% and Garcia with 8%. In February, Garcia announced on social media with a photo of him next to Elon Musk that Tesla would open a gigafactory in Monterrey. Construction has not yet started. Madagascar's outgoing president Andy Rajoelina expressed little doubt as he spoke to the media about his predictions for the country's upcoming elections. Now, the leader, who will seek re-election on Thursday, is banking on popular support and got to get him over the line. Voters in the Indian Ocean island nation will elect a president on November 16th. But the run-up to the poll has been marred by near-daily opposition demonstrations after disputes over its regularity. Rajoelina, 49, became Africa's youngest head of state in 2009 when he took power on the back of a coup. After not running in the 2013 election due to international pressure, he was voted back into power in 2018 and has since held the reins in a country that remains among the poorest in the world despite vast natural resources. While the island's second-largest city is accessible by road from the capital Antananarivo, dilapidated infrastructure hampers the journey. Rajoelina travels swiftly via private plane, with little time to see whether the opposition had staged one of their regular protests against him. Several hundred people, mostly youths, gathered in the center of Antananarivo on Saturday in protest at what the opposition calls an institutional coup to favor the sitting president. Tens of thousands of Spaniards rallied nationwide Sunday, answering a call by right-wing parties to protest after the socialist government offered an amnesty to Catalan separatists behind a failed 2017 declaration of independence. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez offered the amnesty in order to shore up support needed to form a new government in a deeply politically divided country. But the gambit has sparked anger on the right, which sees dangling the possibility of an amnesty for those behind the secession attempt, which sparked a huge political crisis as an assault on the rule of law. Marchers gathered in 52 major cities across the country to show opposition to the plan, at the behest of the conservative main opposition Popular Party and its allies.
Porque defendemos un Estado de Derecho. Porque defendemos la democracia y por todo esto decimos no a la amnistía, no a la impunidad, no a la desigualdad, sí a una España de ciudadanos libres e iguales y con futuro.
Protesters said the mobilization was for an issue which goes far beyond party, as some 80,000 people turned out in the capital, according to the city prefecture, amid a sea of red and yellow Spanish flags around Puerta del Sol Square. A new round of United Nations-backed talks to limit global plastic pollution will take place in Nairobi, Kenya from 13th to 19th November 2023. Now, according to research published in March 2023, the amount of plastics entering the world's oceans have surged by an unprecedented amount since 2005 and could nearly triple by 2040 if no further action is taken. An estimated 171 trillion plastic particles were afloat in the oceans by 2019, according to peer-reviewed research led by the Five Gyres Institute, a U.S. organization that campaigns to reduce plastic pollution. It predicted that marine plastic pollution could rise 2.6-fold by 2040 if legally binding global policies are not introduced. The study looked at surface-level plastic pollution data from 11,777 ocean stations in 6 major marine regions, covering the period from 1979 to 2019. Microplastics are particularly hazardous to the oceans, not only contaminating water, but also damaging the internal organs of marine animals, which mistake the plastic for food. Former Czech Foreign Minister Karel Schwarzenberg, one of the main figures in the country's transition from communist rule to democracy, has died. Schwarzenberg was born into a prestigious Czech family and became a top aide to his friend Václav Havel after the former president won the country's first free election in 1999. He later served twice as foreign minister between 2007 and 2013. Schwarzenberg had spent a large part of his life in exile as his family was among top targets of the communists who took power in 1948 coup, confiscating the vast Schwarzenberg property, which included chateau, forests and farmland mainly in the south of the country near the border with Austria. After the Velvet Revolution of 1989, which peacefully toppled communist rule in then Czechoslovakia, Schwarzenberg became Havel's chief of staff. In 2013, Schwarzenberg ran for president but lost to Miloš Zeman, another towering figure of post-1989 Czech politics who finished his second presidential term earlier this year. Still to come in sports, Chelsea and Manchester City share the spoils in thrilling Premier League draw.
76 minit tanpa henti.
76 minutes non-stop. Transparent and concise.
Paparan komprehensif, ringkas dan padat. Saksikan Kanta 744 7:44 malam. Berita perdana 8 malam.
Malaysia tonight, 8:30 p.m.
Harimau Malaya midfielder Brandon Gian will remain unfazed as he and his teammates take on Kazakhstan in the 2026 World Cup and 2027 Asian Cup qualifiers at Bukit Jalil National Stadium this Thursday. According to him, psychological tactics attempted by Kyrgyzstan head coach Stefan Tarvokic will not affect the national squad. Brendan said he believed that the qualities possessed by his teammates would enable them to prevail against their higher-ranking opponents.
For us, we just come here and we do our job. That's what we have to focus on. We cannot focus on what they are doing. We must focus on what we want to do and how we want to play.
Dankovic reported to have announced footballers playing in the Malaysia League, including Merbek Aktamalev, PDRM FC, and Tamerlan Kuzev Biv, PKNS FC, who are supported to possess information about the weaknesses of the national squad. Meanwhile, national head coach Kim Pan-gon has decided to call up Sabah FC left-back Daniel Ting, who has been on the standby list to join Central Training Camp starting yesterday. Daniel will replace Terengganu FC's Azam Azmi Murad due to concerns over a knee injury. Manchester City were throttled by Cole Palmer's 95th minute penalty as Chelsea salvaged a 4-4 draw from an incredible clash yesterday, while Mohamed Salah fired Liverpool up to second in the Premier League. A share of the spoils at Stamford Bridge leaves City 1 point ahead of Liverpool, who beat Bradford 3-0, and Arsenal at the top of the table. Pep Guardiola's men went in front in controversial fashion as Erling Haaland slotted home a penalty. Thiago Silva powered home from a corner to equalize before Reece James pounced on an error from Josko Gvardiol to set up a Raheem Sterling to net against his former club. Chelsea's lead did not last until the break, as Manuel Akanji was offered acres of space to head in Bernardo Silva's cross. City were back in front less than 2 minutes into the second period as Haaland slid in to meet Julian Alvarez's cross for his 17th goal in 18 games this season. The Blues responded once more as Nicholas Jackson snapped up a gift from Ederson after the Brazilian goalkeeper parried Conor Gallagher's shot back into the danger zone. Rodri's deflected effort on 86 minutes looked to have finally settled the game in the visitors' favour. But Ruben Diaz was penalised for diving in Armando Roja in an added time, and Palmer showed no sign of nerves as he hammered home the spot kick. Meanwhile, Chelsea boss Mauricio Pochettino says he's happy with Chelsea's 4-4 Premier League draw with Manchester City, despite his outburst at the final whistle. Now, the 51-year-old ranted at referee Anthony Taylor after the match when he felt Raheem Sterling had a chance of scoring a winner, but has apologized for his actions.
So happy. I think the players deserve full credit because of the performance this evening was amazing. We faced a team that for me is the best team in the world. Yes, too many circumstances that happened during the game that make me very proud because in the way that we managed the game was really, really good. Of course, always think to improve, but it's the process, no?
The point from the draw edges Chelsea back into the top half, but Pochettino's men are still 10 points off the top four. Meanwhile, Manchester City boss Pep Guardiola said even though his side blew an opportunity to move 3 points clear at the top, he could not hide his pleasure in the classic after City instead opened up a 1 point advantage over second-placed Liverpool.
So today we didn't lose, we go away. So we take a good point, we play, we create a lot of chances at the right moments, and they had to. So I think honestly, I try to be honest in front of you, I think it was for results for both sides.
Manchester City will face Liverpool in their next match after a 2-week international break, and the Reds made sure that it is top of the table clash by maintaining their perfect record at Anfield this season. Salah became the first player ever to score in each of Liverpool's first 6 home league games of a season when he slotted into the far corner to open the floodgates on 39 minutes.
Exceptional, just an exceptional player. We played a super game today, and we all know how difficult it is against these tall centre backs, centre halves, whatever, 2 players around him, all these kind of things. How often he kept the ball for us, and we could play from there. That was super important, and scoring 2 goals. Yeah. We had so many good moments in the first half where we scored, but it was offside and things like that. And then in that moment, the composure for the first goal is just insane.
In tennis, Novak Djokovic will finish the year as world number 1 for a record-extending 8th time after beating Holger Rune 7-6, 6-7, 6-3 in his opening match at the ATP Finals on Sunday. The 24-time Grand Slam champion needed just 1 win or a defeat for young rival Carlos Alcaraz in order to secure top spot in the ATP rankings for 2023 and made no mistake in the Green Group clash with spirited debutant Rune. Djokovic, on a run of 19 straight wins, has had an age-defying year, winning 3 slams to become the all-time record winner of major titles. The 36-year-old came into the finals in turn off the back of his 7th triumph at the Paris Masters, his 40th victory at a Masters 100 event. Those are 2 more records to add to a long and growing list of Djokovic, who is hunting a 7th finals title, which would take him 1 ahead of retired great Roger Federer. Later today, Alcaraz makes his ATP Finals debut in the red group against Alexander Zverev, the second-seed Djokovic's closest challenger. However, the Wimbledon champion is in uncertain form after being dumped out of Paris Masters by Russian qualifier Roman Saifulin following return from an injury layoff. The Spaniard hadn't played since the Shanghai Masters in early October due to the lower back and left foot problems. Meanwhile, Jannik Sinner made a dream start to the ATP Finals with a comprehensive 6-4, 6-4 defeat of Stefanos Tsitsipas in their opening green group clash. Playing in front of his home crowd in the Hague Pala Alpitour indoor arena, the world number 4 was streets ahead of his opponent, even if the score looked reasonably close. Sinner served superbly throughout and struck his ground strokes with venom, needing just one service break in each set to wrap up a routine victory. Sinner wrapped up the opening set in 40 minutes, and when he broke serve at the start of the second set, he never looked like relinquishing control against a flat-looking Tsitsipas. The Italian, who has qualified by right for the season ender for the first time, sealed victory with an ace. Well, Ducati Lenovo team rider Enea Bastianini picked up his first silverware of the season after being crowned the 2023 Malaysian Motorcycle Grand Prix MotoGP champion in Sepang yesterday. Starting in the third grid, Bastianini delivered a stellar performance in the opening lap to overtake his teammate and reigning world champion Francesco Bagnaia, along with Prima Pramac Racing's Jorge Martin, to take the lead under sunny skies at the Sepang International Circuit. The Italian crossed the finish line in 39 minutes, 59.137 seconds, to break his title drought since he last tasted victory at the Aragon GP in Spain in September last year. Celebrating the win, the 25-year-old released a triumphant fist bump to end his quest for silverware. Yesterday's sprint race champion Alex Marquez from Gresini Racing MotoGP was runner-up, 1.535 seconds adrift from Bastianini, while Bagnaia, who was 2.027 seconds behind, completed the podium. Bagnaia's main rival, Martin, on the other hand, completed the race in fourth place, while former 2021 world champion Fabio Quartararo from Monster Energy Yamaha MotoGP ended up in fifth. As MotoGP 2023 heads into the penultimate race of the season, today's results saw Bagnaia moved 14 points clear over second-placed Martin, who has collected 398 points so far. Well, that concludes this edition of World Today. In our top story, death toll in Gaza exceeds 11,000 people. Tune into Malaysia Tonight, coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. We leave you with visuals of Mount Etna, showing off spectacular red-hot explosions. And we'll be free. I'm Otto Othman. Thank you for watching.